What's up, fight fans? I'm the overcooked meatball of mixed martial arts, Tommy Toehold, and UFC on Fox 16 is fucking awesome. Just look at this card on the bottom right, and then look at the $6,000 counter move game right below it. $1,000 to the winner. This card is free. It kicks ass. If you want to know how to play, the 3 steps are right there, and if you want a more detailed explanation, click on that how to play square at any time during the video. Let's do this shit! Alright, first up we've got Zach Cummings and Dominique Steele. Steele has 7 decisions in 13 wins. He's been KO'd 3 times. He is making his UFC debut. Cummings is a former Ultimate Fighter contestant. He has 9 submission wins, including a first-round sub in the UFC. He's fought very high-level guys. Cummings gets the win here, and I think he gets the finish. Solid pick. Next up, we've got Jessamine Duke and Elizabeth Phillips. Duke is 1-2 in the UFC. Her last finish was in 2012. She's on a 2-fight skid. Phillips is also on a 2-fight skid. She has no wins in the UFC, but she was able to score 2 finishes in her early career. Duke has had higher-level opponents, and she actually beat Phillips in her amateur career. Duke gets a win, but I'm not sure about a stop. Next up, we have Ramsey Nijem and Andrew Holbrook. Nijem has a lot of UFC experience, but only 2 finishes, both in the first round. He lost his last fight via TKO. He has been stopped 5 times. Holbrook is making his UFC debut. He has 8 first-round finishes, all submissions. He is unbeaten with 9 submission wins. It's tough to say with Holbrook because he does not have a lot of high-level experience, but for the price of $4,500, if you are picking on this fight, he might be your best counter-move choice. I'm going with Holbrook. Next, we have Darren Cruikshank and James Krause. Cruikshank has 9 KO TKO wins in his career, but he also has 6 decisions. 2 of his last 3 wins have come via TKO. He has lost twice in the UFC via submission. Krause has 13 submission wins in his career and 6 KO TKOs. He's only been TKO'd once with a kick to the body. All of his wins in the UFC have been stops. This is a hard one to pick. I like both of these guys a lot. Cruikshank has scored a lot more points overall, but I think this is a tough one for both of these guys. I think there's a finish here. I'm just not sure who. Cruikshank is a safer pick, but honestly, you couldn't go wrong with either guy. Next up, we have Eddie Wineland and Brian Caraway. Caraway has 17 submission wins in 19 victories. That is a lot. Every win he's had in the UFC as a sub, he has never been stopped in the UFC. Wineland has 11 KO TKOs and 5 subs in his career. He's had 2 stops in the UFC, and he has fought some very high-level opponents. This one is tough, but I gotta give the edge to Wineland because he has the high-level experience. Even if he loses, he probably won't get finished. Next, we've got Kenny Robertson and Ben Saunders. Robertson has 9 submission victories and 15 wins. 3 of his 4 UFC wins have come via stoppage, twice in the first round, but he has not fought a high-level UFC guy yet. Saunders has been around for a while. His first stint in the UFC was in 2009. He has 9 KO TKO wins and 6 submissions. He is on a 2-fight win streak with 2 stops in the first round in the UFC. I'm on the Saunders train. I like his momentum going into this one. He's fought some high-level guys. Saunders via sub. Next, we've got Jim Miller and Danny Castillo. Miller has 14 submission wins, but he also has 7 decision victories. He doesn't lose much, and if he does, it's usually via decision. He is on a 2-fight losing streak, 1 via KO. Castillo is a team alpha male guy. He's strong all around. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, and he's only had 1 finish in his last 9 fights. Jim Miller's highs are high and his lows are low, but I think he might be able to pull this one out. Either way, these 2 guys are not scoring a lot lately. I would avoid it. Next up, we've got Gian Vellante taking on Tom Lawler. Vellante has 8 KO TKO wins. 2 of his last 3 wins in the UFC have come via stoppage, and he's fought some decently high-level guys. Lawler has never been KO'd in his career. He has a pretty high finish rate, and he has also fought some pretty high-level guys. The deciding factor here, though, is that Lawler has not fought since 2013. It's unclear how he's gonna do. Vellante is rolling right now. I would say he is the safer pick to get a stop. Next, we have Joe motherfucking Lozon taking on Takagomi. Oh my god, this fight is awesome. Lozon has 18 submission wins. He is a freaking animal. Always brings it, usually scores a bunch of points. He's only had 1 decision victory in the UFC. The rest were stops. Gomi is a legend of the sport. He has 2 finishes in the UFC and 2 decision wins. He's been sub 3 times in his UFC career. As fun as this is gonna be, this one is a lock. Lozon via sub, signed, sealed, delivered. I cannot wait to see this fight, but I have a feeling Lozon puts it away quick. Next, we have Edson Barbosa taking on Paul Felder. Barbosa is fucking terrifying with 10 KO TKO wins in his career. 4 of those KO TKOs come in the UFC. He has, however, been knocked out and subbed in the UFC by Varner and Cerrone. Felder is unbeaten, but does not have a ton of high-level experience. His UFC debut was a split decision win, and then he blasted Danny Castillo with a spinning back fist in the next fight. I just don't know what level Felder is at yet. Barbosa is a nasty motherfucker. He could very well get a KO here, but there are too many unknowns, so only put him on your team if you gotta. Okay, on to the co-main event. We've got Miesha Tate taking on Jessica Eye. Tate has a bunch of high-level experience, and while she does have 7 decision wins. She also has 9 stops. Her last 3 wins in the UFC, though, do come via decision. Eye does not have as much high-level experience as Tate, but she's fought some super strong opponents recently. She ripped Leslie Smith's ear off in her last fight. She is mean, and she's never been KO'd, but she does win mostly via decision. Fight fans, this fight is probably going to go the distance. I think that gives Tate the advantage here. I don't see a stop happening, and I don't see it being a very high-scoring fight. I would avoid this one. Finally, we move on to the title fight. TJ Dillashaw and Renan Barão. It's a rematch. Dillashaw has 5 finishes in the UFC. He is a high scorer, generally speaking, and he looked unstoppable in the first fight with Barão. Barão is a fucking killer. 15 subs and 8 KO TKOs. He's got a 3rd round sub returning from his loss to Dillashaw. I think that first big shot that Dillashaw gave Barão made the difference in the first fight, and I think it will yet again. He's too fast. He moves too well. Dillashaw via TKO or sub, and I think he scores the most points on the night. Now that we know all the fighters and who I think is going to win, it's time for my picks. I'm going to go with Dillashaw, Lozon, Saunders, Holbrook, and Duke. You pick whoever the fuck you want to pick. From now to Fight Night, you can change your team as much as you want. For everybody at Countermove Fantasy MMA at countermove.com, I'm Tommy Toehold, and I will see you on the leaderboards, you great picking motherfuckers.